right. How's the networking? Everybody, thumbs up. If the networking is good, thumbs up, thumbs up. Everybody meeting somebody that they have not met, thumbs up. Okay. All right. Full disclosure, there's a 25% fee if you guys make any money off each other. So, just kidding, just kidding. All right, we're gonna get started with our next special guest. All right. Everybody set? So, our next guest, super excited about also, done business with, actually did business with, that's our people outside?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if you remember this, but it's a funny story that we actually did business, had a full listing, had a full sale, never met each other, and then we were at the gym, and then I heard your voice, I was like, man, that sounds familiar. I'm like, your name Kristen? Like, yeah, your name is. So, far as, number one, in my opinion, I would say a power broker. Number one, what I admire most about it is the tenacity, aggressiveness, market knowledge, for sure, and just courage to get it done. We're going to talk about the brokerage that she's building right now, even furthermore, her investing career, of how it started, how it's going, and where it's going, and how we can help her get there. So everybody, I just want to introduce Kristen Kennedy.
Hello.
All right. So, why real estate? How did you get into it, and why real estate out of all the other industries?
Honestly,
Yeah, yeah.
I was 19 and pregnant with my first child.
Okay.
And growing up in a family that were entrepreneurs with my parents, I knew I didn't want to work a 9-to-5 already.
Yeah.
While in college. And at that time, I was like, okay, I'm doing school, I'm working at Walmart. Well, barely working because I didn't really show up.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably still an entrepreneur as an employee.
Yeah. So, and then my husband and I, we were pregnant with our first child. So I decided I needed to do more. So real estate was the answer. I was familiar with it to a certain degree because my dad had investment properties and stuff like that. Just a couple of rentals here and there. But I didn't really know much about the sales side. But I figured that was the easiest way to kind of step into it.
Right.
So 19 pregnant, fast forward, 20, had my first child, 21, jumped into the business, stopped college, took off.
Yeah. Yeah. So, kind of walk us through your train of thought with your approach, even coming from a family of entrepreneurs, but now it's your path that you got to kind of carve out for yourself. So, what was your approach to your business and how you got to this point? So, how did you approach yourself being an entrepreneur?
Well, I was young, so the biggest thing when you get into real estate sales, they teach you is, kind of go to who you know, start with the people you know. Well, I'm 21. No one I know is buying a house.
Yeah.
Most of my family, after Katrina, they all went everywhere. So a lot of my family wasn't in town, so it started off with online marketing. Craigslist, actually.
Yeah.
So Craigslist allowed me to open the door to meet other people that were looking to purchase real estate. And then from there, I built an online brand and then eventually got to the point of having a referral base.
Right.
But that was it. I mean, it was just a lot of trial and error, learning from other people that were in the business and successful. That was the main thing. Definitely, I never had an issue with asking questions and asking for help.
Right.
And then learning from those people and then tailoring it to make it work for me specifically.
Right.
And then from there, like I said, I figured out what worked for me and then grew it.
Right. So I think the thing when people first start a business that they're unfamiliar with is they're afraid to fail and they're afraid of those mistakes. But I think the money is in the mistakes. So tell us about some of those mistakes early on, that first year. So tell us about those first year agent mistakes that you made.
First mistake, and thank God that my first sale was actually the home that my husband and I purchased. I let the listing agent tell me that because I didn't find the issues we discovered during inspections prior to inspections that I couldn't request any concessions. Right. So he's like, oh, you should have said something about that when you looked at the property.
Man.
And I'm like, what? Dang. You know, so, he got me. He definitely got me. But yeah, that was probably my biggest mistake. And then from there, I always, asked for assistance. So I would try my best because, buying a home is usually the average person's biggest transaction.
Yeah.
So that's something I never wanted to mess up for anyone. So I tried my best not to have those mistakes. If there was something I didn't know, I just asked for help.
Right. And so how do you manage mistakes now? So I know early on you just got to take that to the chin. But moving further along now in your business, how do you kind of interpret or how you ingest mistakes now? How you manage those?
For me, I'm always looking for a solution. If a mistake happens, then the next thing is, okay, how can we fix this?
Yeah.
So that's my biggest way of managing it. And not only that, if there's a mistake where it was something where, if I'm representing a client and I know it could have been avoided, I have no problem with taking ownership. I will cut you some of the commission if I have to. It's just, for me, it's always whatever solution I have to come up with to make the mistake work.
Right.
So that's just my biggest thing. And then learning and growing from it to never do it again. And then teaching people under me, listen, this is what happened with me. This is how you avoid it. At some point in my career, I had like 10 properties under contract at once, and 8 of them canceled. That's very difficult, very tough, and it was during the holidays.
Right.
So learning how to avoid being in that position in the first place. And from that, I learned, okay, if you're dealing with a difficult client, then you know that XYZ is going to be an issue. So let's not even write on this. Let's figure out if this actually works for them early on, so we're not canceling because you don't like the color of the front door. So that was my biggest thing, just learning from every mistake and fixing them the best I could.
Yeah. So just to progress a little bit more, tell us about when you started getting traction. So you're 20, you first get into it, you're leveraging Craigslist, you leveraging other brokers' listings just to get your name out there?
Yes.
Right. So now we're starting to get some momentum. Tell us how you started getting traction and what did you do with it moving forward?
I really have to find my comfort zone. I am not one that likes to go door knocking. I don't want to sit on the phone cold calling and stuff like that. So what I did discover is that I loved the investment side of real estate.
Yeah.
So I attached myself to developers. And that's how I grew my business. I started being known as the broker to go to if you were a developer or an investor.
Right.
And from there, and then I love that side of it. I love helping you find a property. I love helping you get the property to something that's marketable. And then I love marketing and selling it for you.
Right.
So I'm there every step of the way with my investors. And then I also, in terms of buyers, I discovered that I'm really good with getting them in a good space, negotiating great for them, but time didn't really allow me to show properties at a capacity that they really need. So then I started leveraging other people, hired a buyer's agent. So I teach my buyer's agent, this is how we do things. They show the property, but I'm still there, just not physically opening the doors.
Right.
And that was the biggest thing.
Yeah. And we kind of touched on that with Steve for scaling up. So you made yourself redundant and handed it off to the buyer's agent. So tell us what that experience was like. Was the buyer agent your first hire in your business?
It was a transaction coordinator as my first hire,
Okay.
then a buyer's agent.
Okay, so tell us about that training experience with duplicating yourself and then handing it off to them. Did they get it fast or not? What was that experience like with that first hire?
That very first hire, she was really, really great with paperwork. So
Okay.
that was easy. I taught her a few times and that was it. She had it. When it came to the buyer's agent, that was a little bit more difficult because the lady that I hired, she was very shy. And so, when it came to certain clients, she's like, oh, can you talk to them? And
Yeah.
so that was difficult. So then from there, I just had to learn. I had to learn about, personalities, what meshes well, whether or not that person's even right for real estate in the first place,
Right.
and then if they work well with me.
Gotcha. So for a new real estate professional, because this, I don't think it's only agent specific or only sales specific, how would you give somebody advice on how to find your niche? So you found it with investors and you found it where you are now. So if somebody had to navigate that part of their career, how do you suggest you find that niche or find it faster?
It's really trial and error. If you don't enjoy doing it, figure out what you do enjoy.
Yeah.
I discovered early on that, there were certain parts of the real estate sales side I did not like.
Yeah.
So I figured out a way to leverage other people so that I didn't have to do that part, and I could focus on the things that I did enjoy.
Right. Okay. So after you get the traction, you hired the transaction coordinator, then you hired the buyer's agent. Now tell us about the scaling up portion of it and the mistakes you made with that part. You already went from 0 to 1, now we're trying to get to 1 to 100. So what has that experience been like with employees now at this point, and still being an aggressive entrepreneur individually?
I would have to say that biggest challenge is training. So that's why I now have broker partners and things of that nature. So there's certain things, like I said, it's trial and error. I find that training isn't my best forte. I mean, I'm great with it, but I'm not doing any justice to the individual training them because I'm not available enough.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing, is just having the right people in place to help train individuals as agents. And then I guess the other challenge with just scaling up is being able to allow others to grow and take over certain aspects of the business. That part's pretty difficult because you want to control and make sure everything goes as you intend for it to go, and if someone else is handling it, you can't guarantee that. So, and then also understanding, like he said, that knowing that, sometimes this person may do it better than me. So allowing them to do that and then analyzing whether or not that is a better method.
Right.
But that's probably the biggest part.
Yeah. And I think that's the most difficult part for everybody. So now with your employees, how you think you make it safe for them to make mistakes?
I think that we have a lot of systems in place to help them to avoid the average mistakes.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. We have systems, we have people in place for training, we have schedules in place, and I think that's the biggest thing. Other than that, it's really just allowing them to work through the process. As they're doing their transactions, they're gonna hit walls, and they just, they give us a call and we coach them through it. And coaching is very important. I have a coach personally, so that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. So now let's move past, now you're a power broker at this point, that's what I call it. But now transitioning to being a broker and being a developer. How did that even happen? Because some people compartmentalize those businesses. Maybe a family member would do it, then they stay with the brokerage. But you rarely see both do it well at the same time. So how did you first get into it, and how do you maintain it now?
So I first got into it, to be honest, I mean, I'm at closings. Like I said, I'm working with investors and developers. I'm at closings.
Seeing them hustle.
I'm like, this is my check.
You already know.
I started counting other people's money. So I'm like, wait a minute, I can do this too, So that was the biggest thing. And then, like I said, I already enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing it with my clients. So I'm like, if I enjoyed it so much, why not do it myself? So once I got past the challenge of getting to the point of being able to do it myself, then from there, it's just, it worked well. I'm able to do both at a high level.
Yeah. And what was that experience like? So that first investment project, tell us about those mistakes, that mistake. So your first, it was a flip or a new build was your first investment deal? It
was a flip. It was in Algiers Point. There were so many issues from the start of it with dealing with HDLC. I had no clue that, I didn't know what HDLC was. I learned very quickly what they were.
And that's the Historic Landmark Commission for the people that don't know or don't do business on Orleans Parish. And they could make it a pain,
Yeah, we got to stop work order. I mean, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. We got to stop work order. We opened the walls. There was termite damage everywhere. We had to literally rip off half the house. Then we got in trouble because when we rebuilt it, we did everything right, but we didn't actually get anyone to come out and inspect the foundation. I mean, there was so much. We were able to get past that hurdle, luckily, because my husband worked for a construction and engineering firm. So he was able to get his boss, hey, I need you to write this report for me. So he got past that, but that could have been bad. That could have been bad. But yeah, everything that could go wrong definitely did. From undervaluing the construction cost, we had to come out of pocket with like 40 grand. You know, it was a lot.
Yeah. So what did you learn? Yeah.
Numbers. Know my numbers. Know my numbers, especially on the construction side. That was the biggest thing. And then also going into a flip, knowing that 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna have to redo 90% of this house. If I don't, then great. But I go into it, if I can't afford to do this flip at 90%, you know, remodel, then I just don't do it.
Right. Yep. I agree. So, and I wanted you to share that because everybody in the room, that one flip, those 40 sets of eyes that Steven talked about, they're in the room right now. So a wholesaler looked at the Algiers Point property, a contractor probably looked at it, another investor probably looked at it, and you were the one that ended up seeing like what the actual value of it became, right? So so you underwrote it the wrong way,
Right.
but you only made that mistake, you know, once. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So so fast forward. So where we at now? Where your company? How would you describe your company now between the brokerage and development?
So on the brokerage side, I think we're growing because a couple of partners and I, broker partners and I, we just merged literally June of this year. So I had my own company in 2018. One of my other associates, I started with Keller Williams. She left Keller Williams right after me. And then the third partner, she just got her broker's license and left Keller Williams this year. So we realized that we all were doing things at a great level. And if we did it together, then we had an opportunity to better service the community. And so right now on the brokerage side, it's just about, you know, building up a really good powerhouse of brokers that can cater to clients on a different level.
Right.
I think, like you said, you and I, we did a transaction together. We never even met each other face to face, but nothing was missed. And that's what I like about my partners. We're all the same way. We're very, very thorough in every transaction we do, and we're trying to, you know, build a team of agents that's similar in that manner. Because we find, you know, there's a lot of agents out here that's just, they're chasing the check. And so much gets lost in the transaction when you're doing it that way, and the loser, it usually ends up being the seller or the buyer. So that's things on the brokerage side. And on the development side, my husband and I think we had a goal of about 4 or 5 flips this year. You know, we're like, we're gonna really kick it off this year. 4 or 5. We're at 21.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, that just, it catapulted, you know, a lot of deals. Once we got everything we needed in place, which the biggest thing was financing. So once we got a good team of individuals for financing, we were able to really take off.
So I know the building systems part, that's the what portion of building a business. So the people that's scaling up and the people that's just getting started, how do you describe building that system from scratch? So if I got a brokerage, I got a new agent, and we have one new type of way of doing it, how do you normally put that system together and then hand it off to the new agent?
For me, I am really big on forms, I guess you can say. So, and I like technology. So I like something that's seamless. It can go across your phone, your computer, your laptop, everything. That's my biggest thing. I write everything down. So if it's written, it's a good guide. You just follow it. And that's my biggest thing. I just try to keep everything written so you can just follow it easily.
Yeah, that's perfect. So, and I want to add to that. So, like in our businesses, it start off as a checklist at that point, and then we might use something like Lucid Chart or Visio to make like a process map, because everybody learn differently. So what we try to do is document it in a checklist form, a map, and video. So if we hiring somebody off the street, you got to get it one of these 3 ways. And if McDonald's could do it, we could do it. So for the people, I'm asking that question. So when you do try to scale up and you build those systems, it don't have to be difficult. Like everybody won't do a map. Everybody doesn't want to do a video library, but a lot of people can do a checklist. And when you do a checklist, all you do is walk through whatever that procedure is, write it down, number it, and once it's recorded, it lasts forever. So with McDonald's, once they recorded how to put ketchup on a burger and put it in a binder, it's still there to this day. You really, memorialize it when you document it. So yeah, thank you for that. So now what's the gap for as where you are now versus where you want to be? I know you smashed this year's goal, but as far as future goals, where you are now versus where you want to be, where's that gap? And we're going to try to help you close it.
So I guess in terms of where I want to be, I want to do a little more consulting. Okay. So I know there's a lot of people that want to get into real estate development or investing, rentals, whether it's flips, rentals, or new construction, and they just don't know how. Yeah. So that's one thing. I want to be able to better educate people and teach them how to get to this position. And then other than that, I guess for my personal portfolio, I mean, we hit 21, so I'm like, okay, now we got to double it. Yep. I drive my husband crazy because he's like, you're so crazy. He's like, everything's just so over the top with you. He's like, why can't it just be simple and easy? I'm like, nah, it's not how you win. Right. So definitely never less than 20 flips a year now. Right. In terms, I want to build my rental portfolio to a few hundred at some point. Yeah. And then other than that, I want to sit back and let my kids take over. Yeah. That's the goal.
That's good. Well, we got people that could get you lots. We got people that could get you apartment complexes right here. So right now we're going to open the floor for questions. And if y'all don't have them, I do. All right.
I got one question, Kristen. Regarding private capital, what do you think in today's market is the best structure that appeals to private money lenders, appeal with Roth IRAs? Like, how do you structure it so that they feel like they're winning and you're winning to fund a lot of your apartments?
So it depends. For me, and I just was having this conversation with someone, as long as I'm gonna reach my goal, I don't really care what they make. So if I know that, okay, on this deal I want to make 70 grand, and then I have enough room to make, say, 100, then I don't care if my private money lender gets 30. So that's the biggest thing. When I bring them a deal, I say, here's the deal, here's the options. So I write it all out, I give them the numbers, and I say, this is what you can make. And usually what I do is I'll base it off of a time frame. So I just recently did a deal. It's like, hey, if you give me these funds for 4 months, this is the interest. If you stick this out with me for a year, here's the interest. She took the long term. And I think that's the biggest thing, just seeing what motivates them. Some of my hard money lenders, they want their money back quick. Some of my hard money lenders, they're in it for the long haul. They want to get as much profit as possible. So just give them a bunch of different options and see what they take.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good question. Got another one? Alex?
So when are you going to do like an apartment building? Just kind of looking for it. Thought I heard that thrown out there.
Yeah.
Whenever. I mean, I'm ready. If the deal comes and the money's there, I'll do it today.
So bring a deal, Alex. Tomorrow.
I got one I can bring. You know which one.
You got another question?
Where are you investing, and are you just doing like single family, or are you doing multiple?
I invest any and everywhere. It's just all about the numbers, if it makes sense.
In Louisiana?
Only in Louisiana. But we have properties that we're building in the St. Roch area, Algiers Point, Gretna, Kenner, Metairie, Holy Cross. Yeah, we're
okay. So like the metro area.
Yeah,
okay.
The metro area. But we're even looking at Baton Rouge. So Lafayette, we're open.
I got one more question. So I know for me, before real estate and knowing the actual value that you add to a lender, what's your psychology on asking people for money? Because I struggled with that in the beginning before I knew that interest is actually money that you're giving to them. But what's your philosophy on borrowing capital and raising capital for projects?
I guess for me, it's I have, like I said, I'm big on forms. So I created a form that I use where I'm very transparent with them. Mm-hmm. And because I hit a lot of brick walls when it came to raising money. So when I started just being extremely transparent with my lenders and showing them, this is the project, this is what it can make, this is how long it'll take to sell, this is what the comps look like, the market is strong. That kind of got me past all of that. And then it got to a point where I was able to build a relationship where they're like, oh, they do great work. They give me my money back. Everything's on time. I never have an issue. And that was the biggest thing. You gotta be very transparent with most hard money lenders, I find. And that worked for me.
And what do people normally overlook capital to be raised, or overlook a lender, you would say?
I know one lady I was having a conversation with, she was overlooking hard money because of the amount of interest. And like I said earlier, if you're gonna make X, Y, Z, why does it matter if they're charging 16%? If the deal makes sense at 16%, the deal still makes sense.
Right.
Let them get their money, as long as you get your money.
I guess what I meant, who can become a lender? Is it anybody, or have you found a specific industry of people or type of person that would like to invest in that capacity?
I started networking more with the individuals I know.
Okay.
My mother is one of my lenders, and then her partners. You know, as she got further into it. Well, really, my dad started, but as they got further into investing, you know, they start telling other people, like, "This is great. I just sit back, I write a check, and then it comes back to me with interest."
Right.
So it's really just identifying people that have money, for starters.
Okay.
It's no true industry that I found, because my mother's in the childcare industry. Some other people I know, they are just retired from whatever industry, and they have money they're sitting on, and you know, they're making a little bit of interest here and there with IRAs and stuff, and
Right.
you know, just explaining to them, you have an opportunity here.
Right.
You have an opportunity here. And not only that, I find a lot of people really like to work with individuals that are motivated, and also individuals that want to motivate others. So you're like, hey, this is about all of us winning.
Right.
And that's how I approach new investors. And I'm to the point now where I have one guy, he literally, his money's sitting in my bank account. He's like, nope, just keep it, put in the next one.
Yeah.
He won't even let me give it back to him. He's like, just give me
Right.
my interest.
Right.
So it's just building that trust and that relationship with him. And this guy, he still works. He worked with my husband. You know, I didn't even think he would have had money like that to invest.
So that's somebody you would overlook.
Somebody
Yeah.
I would have completely overlooked. It's just about having conversations with people.
Right. And we're about to wrap up. So one of my last questions is, you think, far as raising capital, is it more about chasing it or making what you do known and attracting it?
I think it's making what you do known and attractive.
Okay.
A lot has come to us. Like my husband's coworker, he came to us. He was like, I see what you're doing and I'm interested. And then a lot of word of mouth. He started telling other people, this is what I'm doing with them. And then next thing you know, other people are calling, hey, can we do it?
Yeah.
You know, XYZ's doing.
Wow.
And yeah, I think it's just putting it out there. Social media helps a
Yeah.
lot. Just put it out there. People they like what we do. They like our projects, and you know, they'll reach out for different reasons, and it just connects us with more and more people.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. So what do you think is best practices with using social media as a tool to attract private capital? Because it can go both ways. Either you could post the wrong thing and repel people and not want to do business with you at all, or you could do it in a methodical, correct way and attract people. So the right way to attract people, social media.
I guess for me, when it comes to the social media side of things, I put my realtor cap on,
Okay.
and I've learned that people love to see pretty houses.
Mhm.
So I use my projects. I use my projects, my clients' projects, and I just put that content out there. They love to see a nice house. They like to see the process of it happening. So that's the biggest thing, is just giving people information.
Right.
The more information you give them, the more people get attracted to it. And you know, I have one client, he said he put out just one little statement. It didn't really mean much to him. He said he went to sleep, he woke up, he had like 50 DMs.
Yeah.
People are always looking for information.
Right. Yep. And I don't get on social media is not an excuse. So for the person that says that, or people that says that, what we talked about today, as far as making yourself redundant and outsourcing it, if you don't do Facebook and Instagram, outsource it.
Right.
Right. So however you do it, record it, hand it off to somebody. And we big on measurements too. So if you want to see a higher return on it, make sure that whoever you outsource it to, if it's 10 posts a day that you're getting the results that you want, make sure that person is doing 10 posts a day, every day for however many weeks that they're supposed to do it. and then you'll get consistent results from there. So,
And I am outsourcing it now.
see? Any more questions for Kristen? Lance?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So in reference to private capital, so I think one of my challenges has been mixing investors on one particular project, right? So do you have an equation for that? Like, let's say, for example, if you're dealing with 2-3 different people, like, I may get people that say, hey, look, I want to invest with you, I have 20 grand, 50 grand. But I mean, my thing is, this project cost me 200 grand.
Right.
So if you can't present me 200 grand, then like, what's this, I don't need your 20 grand or 30, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I guess my challenge has been trying to bring in smaller portions and mix them in on trying to do a deal, because I think the traction of keeping up with that would be more, because I mean, my thing is, if I can't do the whole deal, then I'm bringing someone else in at this point. So have you brought most of your investors, are they in for the whole deal, or do you bring them in and partner up multiple people, or you bring in portions of the deal? Or I guess that has been a challenge for me mentally, to try to overcome that thought process.
So I will merge people. I may use one investor to acquire property and then another one to finance the construction side of it. Or I'll get a group of investors that I know already have a relationship. Like, for instance, my mother, for one, as an example, her and her partners, they formed an LLC, they pooled their money together, and then they did an entire deal together. But that worked because they already had a relationship. So people that, when I have investors that know each other, that's one method that we do. Other than that, I'll use one to maybe for acquisition, another one for construction. And for the individuals that just have 20 or 30, I consider that gap money, especially right now with the cost of lumber and stuff. You know, a lot of deals, when I first bid it out, I was expecting it to be XYZ. We're getting to the finish line and we're like, oh man, we're 30 grand short. That's where those type of individuals would come in. Hey, okay, you can put that 30 up to finish this project out and get X back. And I learned that strategy actually doing it for a client. I had a client that was in that situation. He was about 20 short. I cut him a check for 20 to get it closed, to get the deal done. And then, you know, we sold it and we were finished at that point. But that's the value you can use for those individuals, because it's going to happen, especially with a flip. And even with a new construction, you know, things go wrong. So those people come in handy with that.
Yeah, and I recommend too, whenever you get to that point, consult with the title companies, because at some point it can get sticky with S&C.
right.
So just making sure whether you just got to throw them in an LLC or create a different LLC, or maybe just have them have a mortgage. Make sure the structure to where you won't get in trouble, you know, by the time it sells, to where you crowdfund it.
So do they look to be lien holders on the property?
Yes, sometimes. So for instance, when I do the deal in that manner, if I'm using one person for acquisition, we'll partner. So we'll form an LLC together, we're buying this property together. And then the people that are funding the construction, they'll be the lien holders. So they'll actually put a mortgage on it.
Makes sense? All right. Yeah.
See, to me, to piggyback on what he's saying, like you merging with people and doing different LLCs, man, I got enough. Business-wise and paperwork-wise, to involve another tax return, and it's just like, man, I'd rather just do it myself, you know? So, I mean, you got a lot going on, so how you deal with that? I mean, I'm sure you have a CPA that does all that for you, but it could just be a nightmare, just putting all that stuff together and organizing it. And, I mean, you seem like you're very organizational, unlike myself, you know, which is another big problem, because I'm a one-man show. And I go home and I'm up till 11, 12, 1 in the morning doing stuff and still missing stuff, you know. And I guess that's part of my thing too, not hiring somebody to outsource a lot of this stuff to get it done like it needs to be done in a more organized manner.
I hired an executive assistant, so she handles all of that. That way nothing falls between the cracks. And another thing, because I have 100 LLCs too, what I started doing, instead of forming another LLC, I'll do joint ventures. So I'll get my lawyer to draft a joint venture and saying, you know, okay, maybe I acquire this property, but I'm doing a JV with this person. So they're covered and their money's secure. And then whoever funds the construction, they'll be the lien holder. And then that way I don't have to form another LLC. But in terms of paperwork, EA, that's probably the best hire I've ever done. So now she files my permits. I mean, she literally everything. She's calling energy, she's calling water. I mean, anything, all that those little day-to-day tasks that keeps you up at 1 in the morning, I have someone else doing it.
Where did you find them?
Actually, it was a friend of mine's little sister. She was already kind of working an administrative job, and she was looking for something else, and, you know, I was like, you know, she probably would be perfect, and I was right, she definitely was.
Do you have that EA doing any personal assistant stuff, or is it just all purely business?
Purely business, nothing personal, yeah.
Is that the same thing as your transaction manager?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Carl, I want to challenge you too. So next month we want to at least hear that you posted a job ad for an assistant. So if anybody feel like they're getting to the point where their business is overwhelming, you're not gonna get an assistant until you put an ad out
Right.
and just start doing the interviews and let them know what your workload is. Because once you find it, like it's gonna be
Another thing
good.
that you make me hesitant too is about, I guess, being able to sit still and training somebody.
Right.
I gotta show them this, and we gotta take time and do this and do that, and getting them my accounts and getting all my personal business and about this and that, so. it keep
That
me-
was my challenge too. After I hired her, it probably took 3 weeks to actually sit down and start training, because that just felt like a job in itself.
Right.
But what we did was we got systems. And once we got systems and we started using them, I'm like, wow, this is actually really easy. So I took a day and we started utilizing Zoom and things of that nature to do things and learn things. So we wouldn't have to be face to face, and we can work more efficiently. And that worked, but we use systems like Builder-Trend. We have QuickBooks to, you know, manage all of the assets in terms of income and things of that nature. And then I use apps like To Do, which is a checklist app, and we're all synced on it. So anything I need her to do that day, I put it in To Do, and I just check it, and I see when she's checking the things off, and I know they're getting done. And then just giving her access. I know it's a bit of a challenge, allowing people access to certain things, but giving her access to the systems and allowing her to grow it further and trusting her to do so.
JJ?
Just to kind of like piggyback on what he was saying about, you know, being a one-man show or whatever. Last year, what month is it, July? Last year around this time, I was a one-man show. And by the grace of God, I got out of my own head and I hired 3 people. I have 2 virtual assistants and 1 personal assistant, but she's like a TC also.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I believe it's all mental, you know, like when he just said the statement that to do it, well, you have to do it because you got to have vision, because you believe you're going to bring people on. So my question is, what advice would you give everybody in here on having the vision to hire and to get outside yourself, the whole redundant concept, right? Like, I call it divorcing myself. I divorce myself from tasks. And I like the word divorce because it's like savage, you know? But it's like, what advice, you know, for to hire and think bigger outside yourself?
I would say right now, you got to think about the leverage it gives you.
Right.
For starters, the minute you put someone else in a place to take care of those administrative tasks, now you can focus on getting more business. More business is more income. So if that can't motivate you, I don't know what will. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't have to be sitting in the city's face or filing permits or going to check on every single property every day, you could be out there looking for more business to grow your net worth.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Last question?
I was just gonna say an example, you know, if you work in a doctor's office, for instance, a doctor makes a good salary, right? So do you want your doctor to be calling people, scheduling people, making copies, No, you're gonna hire someone who is gonna make like $8 an hour or whatever and do that for you, right? So it's the same thing. Your time is worth more than, and your knowledge and the things that you're capable of, that is a higher value than like QuickBooks or whatever, right? I mean, so you wanna hire someone who you can pay an appropriate amount, right? But I mean, much less than your time.
Absolutely.
So, Emile, a resource with that, we actually printed it up. One of my coaches got it to me, printed it up. I have it in my office to remind me because I had to get my mindset right. It's called the Entrepreneur Scorecard. You can Google it. It's a picture. It has 4 columns. It's $10 an hour, $100 an hour, $1,000 and $10,000 an hour, and it lists some common activities for those price points. And what I've learned is, if it's in those lower brackets, I need to find ways to start outsourcing it, hiring, staffing, training people for those, so it can free me up to do the higher per dollar hour work. And having that actual visual, it helps in the office, right? Because it does take that, you have to transfer from being self-employed to a business owner. And you've got to get out of divorcing yourself and doing these things.
Yeah, and you could Google that quadrant too. I don't remember if it came from 80-20 Pareto's principle. I forgot what book it came from, but you could Google $10,
Yeah.
$20 hour quadrant.
Yeah, entrepreneur scorecard is what it's called.
Okay.
It's got those 4 columns. If not,
Right.
just message me. It's on my phone too, so when I need the reminder.
Yeah. You mind posting it in a Facebook group? You got
Yeah,
it
we'll do
digital?
that.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll
so
do
it'll be in a Westbank Real Estate Investors Facebook group. So, Kristen, we're getting kicked out. So if anybody ain't got any questions for Kristen, catch it here in the parking lot, but we gotta shut the doors here. Thank you so much for coming out. All right. Man, that's dope.
KJ Simmons. One of my struggles has been structure, how I help somebody. So, okay, the rules that have been coming.